Hello, Raw Mithril here once again. Before we get started today, a couple of important announcements to make. First and foremost, I've been asked to advertise another charity event coming up. This is a bit of a special one, the Extra Life Marathon for the Children's Miracle Network. The reason this one is special is it's not just one stream. From my understanding, this is more of a worldwide kind of event. It's multiple streams held by various volunteers across the globe. In this case, the one I've been asked to mention is being hosted by Trientia and Novakistan from YouTube. My apologies if I pronounced the names wrong there, but links to their channels will be provided in the video description. They're hosting a marathon of Star Wars games for their stream, including Star Wars Jedi Power Battles, Star Wars Jedi Knight Jedi Academy, Battlefront 1 and 2, Republic Commando, all the LEGO Star Wars games, Super Star Wars, Super Return of the Jedi, and basically whatever they can get their hands on. The stream will be hosted on Twitch TV on Trientia's channel. Again, a link will be provided, and it will last from 8 a.m. on October 15th to 8 a.m. on October 16th, and I wish them a lot of luck with the event. The second announcement is more personal in nature. Those who have been with me for a long time know that the summer, it tends to see a downturn for my family's business. That has proven to be the case again this year. As such, any donations are greatly appreciated. Donations can be sent on my main site via PayPal using the donate button on the right-hand menu. However, there's also a new option. For those who would like to help but either can't afford it or can't use PayPal or what have you, I have registered with Google AdSense as recommended by one of my viewers. This will place various ads at the top of my pages which will generate income on a per-click basis. So if you have some spare time and can do that, my family would greatly appreciate it. I'm not naive enough to think that this will be the ultimate solution that takes care of everything, but hopefully it'll at least be something. It's one of those sorts of things where if all my subscribers and viewers were to go there and do that whenever they have the spare time, it would help out so much. So with announcements taken care of, it's time to get to the meat of this video, the Nezumiman weapon demos. The first weapon we'll be looking at is the Ice Lance, gained from Ice Nezumi. This one is a fairly simple, straightforward shot, and you can have two on screen at a time. I'd most easily equate it to Mega Man 5's Super Arrow, but we'll get to why in a moment. Unlike the Ice Slasher or things like that, it doesn't freeze enemies, it just outright does damage. However, it is key to note that you can stick them in walls and use them as platforms, though they will melt after a short period. Limited though the time may be to actually use it for a platform, it should give you plenty of time to get where you need to go. The Ice Lance is also the weakness of Dragon Nezumi. Yes, it's Pokemon type science at work again. Ice beats Dragon. 6 shots will make Dragon Nezumi chill out. Also, for those wondering, I did test, and the Ice Lance does not freeze the fire bar traps like it would in Fireman's stage. Next up, we have the Smoke Attack, from Smoke Nezumi. This one's a bit awkward to use. It's kind of like Air Shooter, but with more limited range, and not even all that reliable as to how much it spreads. Hitting enemies on the same level as you with this is rather tricky at best. Not all that effective overall. But if you get an enemy that's higher ground than you, then it can actually be of use. Each strike of it counts separately, and you can use it to get some airborne enemies like that. The more airborne threats that a stage has, the better this attack will do. At least if you can count on the spread to work right. There we go, that's a little better. It works quite nicely, for instance, on the mini-dragons in this stage. The smoke attack is Milky Nezumi's weakness. After all, smoking is a dirty habit unbecoming of a superhero. So let's see just what this can do to him. Multi-strikes work rather nicely. Of course, the spread of it does make it a bit of a problematic weakness, too. And due to the boss' invincibility period after being struck, getting multi-hits against him is tricky at best. However, it does get the job done. Next up, we have Milky Rain, obtained from Milky Nezumi. To find a comparison weapon for this one, you pretty much have to go to the X series, as it's most comparable to Neon Tiger's Ray Splasher. It fires a quick volley of stars. The stars themselves, they don't really do any more damage than the normal Nezumi Buster, I don't think. But the shotgun blast from them is really fun to use, and quite handy sometimes. It can handle enemies all over the place. Though, as fun as it is to use and as quick as it is, you really have to watch your energy usage. I got lucky there since they kept dropping large weapon energies, but it can run out pretty fast. Got a room with a lot of weak enemies? Then Milky Rain is the weapon for you. For instance, these smoke telly kind of enemies here. Milky Rain clears them out quite nicely. Rather effective for these purposes, especially if you get within shotgun range. Milky Rain is also the weakness of Delay Nezumi, the star-powered justice of a superhero against a hardened criminal. You do still have to be cautious in this fight. Watch out for Delay Nezumi's attacks. He's still as annoying to try and predict as ever. You also really need to watch your ammo in this fight. It does a number on him, but it is really easy to run out of shots in this battle. Next, we have the Delay Bomb, earned by defeating Delay Nezumi. This is a chargeable weapon. Just hold down the fire button and you'll go through different levels of charges. Now, at first glance, this might look like it would be equitable to the Atomic Fire, but I'd put it more on par with the Pharaoh Shot. Reason being, if you just hold down the fire button, it fulfills another purpose that the Pharaoh Shot did. It works as a shield. Yes, you can just ram this into whatever you want without fear of taking up extra weapon energy from it. Quite useful, that. Of course, the thing is, it'll only stay intact if you hit something with it that isn't instantly destroyed by it. So, yeah, ramming this into a mini-boss, not recommended. Also notice that different levels of power on this thing, it'll do different levels of damage to the enemy, but also it'll take different levels of energy to fire it off. So do be careful about that. Just a bit of proof of concept here that different levels do different amounts of damage. Let's try it against the snowmen. 3 shots with just the most basic charge. Most advanced takes it out in 1 shot. Somewhere in between, 2 shots. So there you go. Also, another thing that people seem to attribute to the Delay Bomb that isn't quite true, it cannot take out damageable walls. At the very least, I know it can't take out those bars that you need the Shockwave for, but we'll get to that demo later on. The Delay Bomb is Usagi's weakness. Slow down, you spazzy kangaroo. A bit of proof of concept here. You cannot hold a charge between rooms, so trying to get a head start that way, unfortunately, won't work. A full charged blast of this does quite a number on Usagi, and it only takes 3 to take him down. So, that certainly simplifies this fight a good bit. Next on the list is Usagi's Pashiri Gun, a rather strangely named weapon. Essentially, it's the Search Snake. You can have 4 of them on screen at once, and they don't really have any extra power beyond the usual Nezumi Buster. However, their trajectory is rather interesting as it follows the terrain perfectly. A word of warning, though, due to that trajectory, it's really not great against airborne enemies. You pretty much have to drop it on them. It has very, very little forward momentum if you drop it from mid-air. Basically, just enough to hit something airborne if you can get above them. So, I wouldn't really count on it for that. Land-based things, sure, it's fine. So according to some of my viewers who wrote in, apparently the term Pashiri basically means a gopher, someone who fetches something for someone else. And considering the second ability of the Pachira Gun, that makes sense. It can get those hard-to-reach items for you, kinda like the Hornet Chaser. As soon as one of the little tiny mice runs through an item, it'll throw it right at you. Quite handy. Finally, the Pachiri Gun is the weakness of butter Nezumi. I guess tiny mice just love the taste of butter. It certainly does quite a number on him. Although it'll do nothing against the barrier itself. But only 3 shots and that's it. Certainly have plenty of ammo for it. Next up we have the Butter Barrier from Butter Nezumi. This is your basic shield weapon, and a pretty good one too. Not quite on par with the Jewel Satellite, but then what is? However, it's a quite useful one. For instance, you might notice that it does get rid of the stars in Milky Nezumi's stage. And if that's not enough for you... Yes, it can even get rid of those laser traps. I assume it gets rid of the ones in Dragon Nezumi's stage too. Now, it doesn't work on all traps. For instance, in Delay Nezumi's stage, the Needleman type spikes, they are not affected by this. However, it does keep you immune from the moving spike traps. So, that's quite interesting. The Butter Barrier can also take out the smoke traps here in Smoke Nezumi's stage. Like so. But what we're really interested in here is how it deals with enemies. As long as you leave it circling you, it can shred enemies like nobody's business. As long as that enemy can be taken down in one shot of the Butter Barrier, and that's a key thing to note. If you run into something that takes more shots, it will immediately get rid of the Butter Barrier, so do watch out for that. However, once you throw the Butter Barrier, it's a different story. There it's only good for one shot, so bear that in mind. As long as you keep it circling you, it can be great for farming items, which is a good thing for the Butter Barrier because you don't have too many shots of it. Other things worth noting, it doesn't reflect shots that hit it, but it does absorb them. Also, the protection, it's not quite perfectly coded. If you're not too careful about how you jump into enemies, for instance, while the Butter Barrier is circling you, they can still hit you through the barrier before they're destroyed. So, do be careful about that. The Butter Barrier also happens to be Ice Nezumi's weakness. Not that the poor guy really needs a weakness, but always remember to refrigerate your butter. It can block his Ice Lance, but really what I find is trying to use the Butter Barrier against Ice Nezumi is actually kind of awkward. With the limited number of shots you have with it, there's not a lot of room for error either. You actually have to hit him with 4 shots to kill him. It leaves him with that awkward last 2 health. So, yeah, it almost doesn't seem worth using this as a weakness, unfortunately. Next up, we have the Shockwave from Wave Nezumi, which is another of those instances of getting a master weapon that doesn't quite seem to match anything that the master in question did. The Shockwave is a very short-range attack, kind of on par with something like, say, the Slash Claw or the Flame Sword. However, it is rather powerful despite its short range. It also has an added benefit of being able to get rid of certain guards. For example, the Med Analog, it can kill them whether they're in their helmet or not. Now, it can't get rid of all guard types. For instance, it can't do anything about the monkeys and their banana shields. But still, it's a decent enough weapon. For all its short range, though, the Shockwave does have an added purpose. It can be used to get rid of destroyable walls, such as these barred gates in Delay Nezumi's stage. Excellent for getting special items and finding the occasional shortcut. The Shockwave is also the weakness of Smoke Nezumi, which makes things a little bit tricky because, yeah, getting close enough to use this safely, that can be a bit troublesome. You really have to time your shots with this thing. But if you succeed, only 2 shots will clear the air. Our final weapon is the Dragon Cluster from Dragon Nezumi. This fires a homing blast of flame in the shape of a dragon. Unlike Dragon Nezumi, you don't actually have a summoning period for it, it just goes straight from your hand. It's fairly powerful, and you can only have one on screen at a time. Fairly useful as a fire and forget kind of solution. So, like most homing weapons in the Mega Man series, the Dragon Cluster is not without its problems. Oversaturation of targets do tend to confuse the poor thing. Unfortunately, sometimes that also includes stage objects, like, say, snowflakes. That's right, Dragon Cluster, you go after those snowflakes. They're very threatening. This can really be a problem when there's more than one target on screen that you actually want to hit. You practically have to be at point-blank range to hit what you're actually after. That bird up in the sky? Nope, snowflakes are more threatening. For some reason that I'm not quite sure of, Dragon Cluster happens to be the weakness of Wave Nezumi. Why the fire weapon is good against the water boss, I'm not quite sure. But it does take a lot of the guesswork out of fighting her. You do still need to be somewhat careful. Just because it's homing doesn't mean that it blocks her attacks or anything. So you still have to watch what she's gonna actually do. It does make the fight go a lot faster, though. And so with that, we're done. Nezumiman is complete, and... What in the... What is this stuff? There's blue fish slime all over my computer. It'll take forever to clean this off. Wait a minute. Gyannaku!